Speaker. I'm proud to rise on behalf of my privacy-loving constituents in Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke. Bill C-27 is another piece of legislation which had to be resurrected after the Prime Minister called his super-spreader pandemic election. Originally, this was supposed to be a long-overdue update to the Privacy Act, and it's since morphed into Bill C-27, the Data Grab Act. Everything about C-27 should leave these Liberals feeling embarrassed. Canadians' right to privacy is fundamental. And sadly, Canadians' privacy rights are not a priority for this government. This bill has languished for years. It was first introduced immediately after the original Online Streaming Censorship Act was introduced. Yet when the Prime Minister called his pandemic election and reset all legislation, what did they make a priority? Was it the privacy rights of Canadians? No. Was it securing Canadians' ownership over their data? No. Instead, what these Liberals prioritized was a bailout for big telecom and a bailout for the legacy media. Not only does this government care more about padding the bottom line of Post Media, but they also adopted Rupert Murdoch's false narrative about tech profiting off the content produced by the news media. Social media companies and search engines don't profit off the news media. They profit off us. These companies profit off our data. And these Liberals know the truth. Unfortunately, this legislation seeks to make it easier for companies to profit off our privacy. If Bill C-27 is not significantly improved at committee, then together with C-11 and C-18, this government will have entrenched the surveillance economy in Canadians' lives. By combining the updates to the Privacy Act with the creation of a new Artificial Intelligence Act, these Liberals have actually illustrated the brave new world we live in. The Privacy Act and the way we talk about privacy even today are holdovers from the industrial era. We don't live in that world anymore. In the industrial economy, privacy rights were concerned with the ability to control what information could be shared. The goal was to prevent harm, which could come from your personal information being used against you. And in fact, information was personal and an economic liability. We spent money on shredders to destroy personal information. The careless use of your personal information could only have a negative value. Then the world changed. Our personal information stopped being a liability and became an asset. It started out slowly. Early examples were Amazon recommending a new book based on your previous purchases, or Netflix recommending what DVD rental you should next receive by mail. Then Google began displaying ads next to search results. That was the eureka moment. Targeted ads were very profitable. But the targeting was pretty basic. If you search for shoe stores near you, Google turned search results alongside ads for shoes. Then it became ads for shoes on sale near you. Then came the Facebook. Millions of people signed up. In exchange for an easy way to connect with friends and family, all you had to do was share all your personal information: who your friends are, how many friends you have, your geographical proximity to your friends. With the addition of the like button, the data harvesting exploded. If you liked a news story about camping, you'd start seeing ads for tents and sleeping bags. Every action Canadians took online, every single bit of their data was commodified. Our privacy was turned into property, and we lost both. Not only does this bill not secure privacy rights, but it effectively enshrines the loss of our property rights with just two words: legitimate interests. Section 18.3, entitled Legitimate Interests. Here's what it has to say. Quote, an organization may collect or use an individual's personal information without their knowledge or consent if the collection or use is made for the purpose of an activity in which the organization has a legitimate interest that outweighs any potential adverse effects on the individual resulting from that collection or use, end quote. Is legitimate interest defined anywhere in the legislation? No. It's just another example of the vagueness found throughout the legislation. Even if we accept the plain language definition, and private business really somehow does have a genuine legitimate reason to collect private information without consent, it's weighted against the adverse effect. Adverse effect is industrial era thinking. It views private property or private or personal information only as a potential liability. Businesses have a legitimate interest in making money. With the internet and mobile phones, much of our private information can be collected without any adverse effect. This legislation turns the private information of Canadians into the property of corporations and calls it legitimate. Madam Speaker, I earlier mentioned that combing the privacy legislation with, or combining the legislation with the AI legislation actually puts a spotlight on the issue of private data as property. But just as it's important to highlight the connection, it's more important that these bills be separated. The Artificial Intelligence and Data Act has been slapped onto a previously introduced privacy legislation. With the privacy portion of the legislation, the devil is in the details. But overall, the bill reflects a general consensus developed over countless committee studies. That's not to mention the contributions to the privacy debate from the federal and provincial privacy commissioners. The issue has been well studied, and the minister has indicated that they're open to responsible amendments. And I'm sure that committee is well equipped to improve the privacy sections of this bill. The same cannot be said about the artificial intelligence. This section of the bill seems rushed because it is. It's intentionally vague. These Liberals claim the vagueness is required to provide them with regulatory flexibility and agility. The truth is, they don't know enough to be more precise. For years, I've been trying to get a study on artificial intelligence in Defense Committee, but there was always more pressing issue. AI was treated like nuclear fusion technology, something that was always just over the horizon. Since this bill was introduced 10 months ago, we've gone from GPT to Chat GPT to open source GPTs, which apparently any teenager can now run on their personal computers. AI programs went from producing surrealist art to creating photorealistic images of the Pope in a puffy jacket. We've gone from short clips of deep fake videos impersonating real people to generating fictional people speaking in a real-time video. When we all started to learn Zoom in 2020, how many people thought the other person on the screen they were talking to could be just a fake? Well, now it's a real possibility. The speed at which AI is developing is not an argument for delaying AI regulation. It's an imperative to get the regulation right. Does this bill do that? The only answer, honest answer, is we don't know. We don't know, they don't know, nobody truly knows. We can learn. We should split this bill and let the standalone AI bill be the first legislation considered by one of the permanent standing committees adding artificial intelligence to its official responsibilities. Artificial intelligence isn't going away. And while much of the media attention has focused on chatbots, artistic bots, and deep fakes, AI is unlocking the secrets to protein folding. That has the potential to unlock cures to countless different cancers and rare genetic diseases. A paper was just published describing how an AI trained on data about the mass of the planets and their orbits was able to discover Kepler's laws of motion and Einstein's theory of time dilation. If we get this wrong, Canada could be left behind by the next revolution in science and discovery. Given this government's track record on digital technology, Canadians should be worried about these Liberals rushing through vague legislation to regulate an emerging technology. Rather than modernizing the Broadcast Act, they're trying to drag the internet back to the 1980s. And with C-18, they're claiming that linking is a form of stealing. These Liberals and their costly coalition allies don't even understand how broadcasting technology works. And they don't understand how the internet works. They see your personal data as legitimate property of corporations. And now they're seeking the power to regulate a revolutionary technology. They did nothing while the world shifted below them. And now they're trying to rush through regulations, without understanding the scope and scale of the challenge. Protecting Canadians' privacy and establishing property rights over their personal data should have been a priority over bailing out Bell and Rogers.
Comments. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, the legislation has been brought forward that the member makes reference to is there to, in essence, as been pointed out somewhat, modernize the broadcasting industry. It's there to ensure that there's a more level playing field. It's there to ensure that some of these big worldwide tech firms are actually contributing to Canadian content. This legislation in itself is there to protect the privacy of Canadians. A lot of this legislation, and there is a substantial amount, is there because there's a need as the internet continues to grow in the technology, whether it's AI or many other types of data fields that are out there that people are concerned about. Would the member not agree that we need to change with the times and bring in this type of legislation in order to protect the interests in the industry?
I have to give the Honourable Member for Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke the time to answer.
The member opposite doesn't realize that the internet is not a form of broadcasting. The Broadcasting Act was brought in to regulate the different bandwidths and the allocations to different stations. We don't need that with the internet. Instead of regulating technology in the public's interest, they're now regulating speech in the interest of the legacy media. Madam Speaker, let's get the privacy bill to committee so it can be improved and passed.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her speech. She spoke a lot about the regulations around artificial intelligence, and so I'm wondering, is she aware of the bill, the AI Act in the European Union, which was tabled in November 2021, which is currently being studied by the European Union? Does she believe that we should maybe wait to see what happens there and take inspiration from the standard that they are creating internationally?
Or Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke.
Madam Speaker, I'm not certain that what's good for Europe is necessarily good for Canada. In fact, I think a lot of things that are decided for Europe are definitely not in the best interest of Canada. That being said, I don't believe we should be rushing into the artificial intelligence legislation. We could certainly look at what is generated from the European study, not committing to adopt it in Canada. What we need to do is make sure we get it right. And so gathering as much information about how to get it right is what's important.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Nunavut.
The NDP have been fighting for privacy rights and indeed released Digital of Rights several years ago and have been trying to talk about consent provisions for years. Does the member agree that there needs to be strengthened wording regarding valid consent by restoring understanding in the PIPEDA under Section 6.1 of the Act? The
Honourable Member for Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke.
Madam Speaker, a person's data is personal, private property. It is the individual's right to decide who should and shouldn't have it. It shouldn't be some automatic, microscopic text that people have to click on in order to get something that they need in a hurry without really understanding the full ramifications of what they're consenting to. So instead of putting consent all through, what we should do is enshrine what our property rights are when it comes to information that pertains to us individually.
Very short question from the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Madam Speaker, I'm just wondering if, with all our concerns about Facebook, is she aware that she is broadcasting this speech today live on her Facebook feed?
Honourable Member for Renfrew-Nipissing-Pembroke.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleague across the way. I am using Facebook Live right now because it's another way to allow Canadians to know what happens in this chamber. Some of them are on a bus, some of them are at school, and they don't have access to a television. But it's not broadcasting like a TV station. This is something they can access on their own without the need to collect a specific.
Alors, conformément à la...
Pursuant to Standing Order 38,